Hello. Hi. I am back. Okay, I haven't been on StreamYard in a while. Give me a second while I try to figure out how to show an image. So I saw this meme on social media the other day that I thought was kind of funny. It was funny in a dark humor type of way. Let me see if I can pull this up. How do I show a picture? Oh my god. Oh, they have like music and stuff here. Look at this. All right, how do I add a picture though? I'm gonna just drag and drop. See if anything happens. No. Okay. Google. Paste, drag and drop, paste into the studio. Add an item. Okay. Can you guys see? I swear to God. Wait, why did I just like shrink? Finally, oh my God. Add a file, okay. Okay, so I saw this. Let me see if I can make myself bigger. I saw this meme on Instagram or somewhere the other day, and I thought it was morbidly hilarious. It says, every summer, the fate chooses a CEO for the sacrifice. That's the ritual. So as you can see in the pictures, okay, I feel like this is not the original meme. Oh my God. I'm trying to find the one that has the dates. All right, you know what? How do I move this freely? There we go. Okay, so this is not the exact meme, but top 3 things that CEOs hate to see coming, or billionaires, you can say. Billionaire CEOs. Number 1, Submarines. Number 2, Luigi Mangione. And number 3, Coldplay. Okay, so if you think about it, coincidence or not, this has been true for the past 3 years. Because when did OceanGate happen? 2023? Yeah. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, OceanGate, there was like two billionaires. The actual founder of OceanGate, which was that company, that the private tour company that took people underwater in a submarine to go see the Titanic shipwreck, that CEO, along with a fellow billionaire passenger and his son, sadly his 19-year-old son, the passenger's son, were all in the submarine when it imploded at the bottom of the ocean, I think before they could even reach the Titanic wreck. Then last year, 2024, the was it United Healthcare CEO? Sorry, I'm not well versed on the details, but yeah, Luigi Mangione was accused of unaliving Brian Thompson, who is the CEO of United Healthcare, because I guess he was one of the people that was affected by not only the cost of healthcare in the US, which I know like the cost itself is a huge issue, but I think in Luigi's particular case, he wasn't able to, for one reason or another, get access to the meds that he so desperately needed in order to quell his pain that he was feeling from some sort of injury that he had, I think in his lower back or something. Yeah, back surgery. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Luigi's social media posts and statements to friends reveal that his back pain affected his ability to sit, exercise, and engage in romantic relationships. And he snapped one day, basically, where he decided to take out the United Healthcare CEO due to his negative experiences with with the healthcare industry, while the CEO, the person at the top who is supposedly the figurehead for this organization that's supposed to help people and help alleviate them of their pain and get them back on the track to good health, is just kind of like living a completely disconnected life, right? As a billionaire, completely disconnected from the people that he is supposedly trying to help through his company. So there's a lot of people who view Luigi as kind of a vigilante, and they don't have any sympathy for the healthcare CEO, even though, you know, it's a sticky subject because we don't want to say that we condone murder or anything like that. But yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion on this one way or another. I'll be honest with you, because I have never been under American healthcare, despite being an American myself. But I've been living in Japan for the entirety of my adult life, and the entirety of my working life has been in Japan. So I've never been under US healthcare as an adult. I only know what I know from what I see in the news about it, but apparently nobody's happy with the costs of US healthcare, and I guess just like the bottlenecks that the system has to like basically, this is not really related to the Luigi Mangione case, but if you talk about Ozempic, for example, that's originally a drug that's supposed to be used for diabetic patients, right? It's supposed to help people with diabetes treat their symptoms. But in recent years, as we know, it's become popularized firstly by celebrities as a kind of get out of jail free weight loss drug for people who are able to afford it and who have the connections to get their hands on it. But there's this whole debate that the people who are using it for vanity purposes to lose weight are taking away the supply of drugs such as Ozempic, such as Mounjaro. They're taking it away from people who actually need it, the ones that have the diabetic conditions. So that's a real issue that happens, I'm sure, all over the world, but we're focusing on the US in this case. So yeah, that was case number 2. And then now we are in 2025. So the summer of 2025, who's the next billionaire who's the next CEO that was chosen to be sacrificed on the altar. None other than astronomer CEO. I have no idea what his name is. I can't remember these people's names, okay? Like, I can't be bothered, but what is his name? Andy Byron. I knew it was some blue blood sounding name. So yeah, Andy Byron, who's the CEO of this supposedly unicorn billionaire startup called Astronomer, which has something to do with AI. That's the industry that he's in. He was caught canoodling with Kristen Cabot, who is his newly hired head of HR, at a Coldplay concert, because apparently Coldplay has something called a kiss cam where they select at random couples in the audience during a certain song that they play. Now, a lot of people are making jokes about how this is the first time that Coldplay has had a single in several years, and instead of not just one single, they made two singles that day, referring to Andy Byron and this Kristen Cabot lady. Although I would say technically they made four singles, right? Because we're including their spouses who have now, well, we know that Andy Byron's wife kind of divorced him, or like washed her hands of him immediately. We're not sure about the other lady, the HR lady, because she also is married. So she was also like previously attached to somebody, meaning that they were both cheating at this Coldplay concert. But yeah, I was just looking at the memes about this thing and having a good laugh, just like everybody else. But then it got me to thinking that in all these scenarios, whenever there is a case of a very powerful, very rich man, in this case, we'll just use the words billionaires, CEOs, right? Whenever you see a male billionaire CEO fall from grace or fall from his pedestal, it's usually a result of just a very, very stupid action on his part, or complete lack of judgment, or a complete, like getting too big for his britches. This it's a result of it's a direct result of their hubris, right? That they get to the station in life where they probably feel like they're completely invincible and unstoppable at this point. And so they allow that hubris, that ego, to blind them into thinking that now they are invincible. Now they can move throughout the world in any way that they want. They can be as ostentatious and abrasive as they want, even out in the open with affairs and such, and nothing is going to be able to touch them because they are at this high of a status. This is the fallacy that a lot of powerful men fall into, and it's what leads to their downfall, because it causes them to, they think that they're invincible, so they start to get really lax with their actions, and inevitably they'll take a really stupid action, or they will find out that they're not as protected as they thought they were. Like at a Coldplay concert, for example, where Chris Martin, the lead singer, he doesn't know who you people are. So he's going to put the kiss cam on you as if you were just another lovey-dovey couple that came to their concert. Because I guess maybe that's, the expected demographic for a Coldplay concert. I will just say for the record, so I know, back to what I was saying before about how people are joking that this is the first two singles that Coldplay has ever put out in the better half of a decade. I was decently a fan of Coldplay back in my younger days. Like, I remember I guess when I was in high school and university, I was there since the inception of Coldplay. I remember their first big hit single, Yellow, right? I think we all know that song. It's kind of a classic. Regardless of how you feel about Coldplay today, you cannot dispute that Yellow is a classic, like romantic, just, pull out your heartstrings kind of song. And I'm just curious. I'm looking it up right now because I want to know what year it was released. June 2000. Yeah. Wow. So that was like earlier than high school for me. So I discovered Coldplay in high school, but their first single Yellow was released in 2000. So I was like 10 or 11 at the time. But anyway, I just think it's funny that this is the most relevancy that Coldplay has ever had in years, and they must be thrilled for the recent, I'm sure, spike in album sales, spike in streamings. Although, let's not get it conflated. Coldplay or Chris Martin in particular is also part of the privileged class. Okay, so you know, let's not paint this rosy narrative about how some common punk rock band exposed these corrupt billionaire CEOs or the corrupt CEO with his HR lady. Like, let's not forget who Chris Martin is, who well, now he's not married to her anymore, but previously he was married to Gwyneth Paltrow, and they have a daughter in between them. I don't know about their other kids, but they have a daughter called Apple Martin, who is rumored to be she's been building up quite a reputation for herself as a mean girl and a nepo baby, right? And let's not forget to ask where Chris Martin is in keeping his daughter in check, because Apple Martin allegedly was rumored to have bullied a girl at her old school so badly to the point where the girl attempted to unalive herself. You guys remember that story? Yeah. They sweep that up. They clean that up really quick. I don't know if it was Gwyneth Paltrow's PR team or Chris Martin or whatever connections that they have in the industry, but they were able to pull strings to get that story removed or pushed to the side pretty quickly. Because I remember it was basically heavily insinuated, or there were, corroborating of voices coming from within their circles that corroborated the story of Apple Martin bullying a girl at her school to the point where the girl was on the brink of unaliving herself. And then Apple Martin, Chris and Gwyneth Paltrow's little nepo baby daughter, was moved to a different school. And then there was another story where she had a debutante ball, I believe, which is the first time that I've ever heard that term used for a modern celebration of a young girl. I mean, I'm familiar with, Sweet 16 or bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. I've never heard of a debutante ball in modern days, but okay, I guess that's cool. And apparently she was, again, caught on camera being mean or like mocking this other girl for stealing her thunder. I don't know. Petty teenager billionaire heiresses Hollywood nepo baby petty drama, right? And it was literally caught on video. She was kind of like mocking and basically just, I guess she didn't like the fact that this girl was kind of having her moment on camera. So Apple kind of interjected and started acting obnoxious so that she could be the center of attention. But I actually think that story was planted by Gwyneth Paltrow's team, because it seems like that if you compare something like that to what actually happened behind the scenes, which is that Apple bullied a girl at her old school to the point where the girl no longer wanted to live anymore, that seems mild in comparison, right? The fact that she was being a little bit obnoxious and trying to overshadow another girl at her debutante ball. So I feel like they planted that video of her out there on purpose so that Gwyneth's PR team, or their whole family's PR team, could later go on and basically, combat what social media users were accusing Apple of by saying that they're taking the video out of context. Apple was just having fun and just, trying to get everybody in the party spirit. I feel like that was their strategy, if you catch my drift. But anyway, so that's enough about Coldplay. I'm just saying, like, don't give Chris Martin too much credit here, because I feel like a lot of people are trying to say that, oh, he stood on business, like he wasn't letting them get away with anything. I think he flat out said to them, whether jokingly or not, he said, oh, you guys are either really shy or you must be having an affair, because why did you run away from my kiss cam like that? Like, he didn't just let it go and then move on to another couple, he kind of hounded them about it, which I'm here for, I'm clapping for, but I'm just saying don't be so quick to give Chris Martin all of the accolades, because Chris Martin needs to go get his own daughter in check, is what I'm saying. Okay. But yeah, so every summer, the universe chooses a billionaire CEO to sacrifice to the gods or to go through a humiliation ritual, was another take on it that I saw. But my point is that all these people are men so far, right? So incident, the submarine incident with OceanGate, that was directly a result of hubris on the part of the OceanGate CEO and co-founder, or just founder. We all saw that infamous interview that he did several years prior, where he was basically like turning his nose up in the air or being flippant about safety measures that the maritime community normally expects people to observe whenever they're operating a submarine or a submersible vehicle. I don't think it was a submarine. I think it was like a submersible, something like that, where I guess a submersible has like less, it's smaller than a submarine and there's less functionality, right? But I think we all saw the interview where he showed us that he used like a game controller in order to control the OceanGate submersible. And then, so I would say 90%, 99% really, of the blame about whatever went haywire during that last OceanGate expedition lies on the CEO. I would also say partially the participants in the tour. So the other billionaire or millionaire, whoever's in that tax bracket, people who decided to actually become, customers of OceanGate company and the submarine tour that they offered to look at the ruins of the Titanic. Those people, I would also say, in a way, they also had a lot of that hubris, right? To allow them to think that, I don't remember how much they charged for the tour, but it was something crazy. It was in the six figures, right? For an exclusive private company led excursion to see the ruins of the Titanic, which, as we all know, the everyday person would never have such an opportunity to have such an experience. So it's a little bit of like, I don't know if you want to call it elitism or hubris. I cannot think of another word at the moment. But yeah, on the part of the customers as well, because it's kind of like, who in their right mind would spend money on such an extravagant, unnecessary expense unless they were so rich to the point where it's like they had nothing to lose, right? Or so rich to the point where it's almost like you don't know what to do with all this extra cash that you have. So why not spend it on something so obscure and so niche and inaccessible to the regular public, just to kind of like flaunt your status. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the passengers of that OceanGate expedition were all necessarily coming from this headspace. Like perhaps they could have genuinely just been interested in taking the submarine tour, but nevertheless, it's kind of like, it's a level of grandiosity, of delusional grandeur that you can only get to if you are in that tax bracket or that higher rung of society, like financially speaking, status wise, right? So unfortunately, it ended in the tragic death of not only the OceanGate CEO, who I would say 100% deserves it, right? Given that he had a track record of ignoring safety protocol or safety suggestions from experts in that field, which he was not an expert in. He was not like a longtime member of the maritime community before founding this company. He was just kind of like a business type person. But nevertheless, it tragically ended in all of those people on board losing their lives. And I think it was a Pakistani billionaire who went with his 19-year-old son, and the 19-year-old son kind of did it as like a Father's Day date with his dad so that they could spend more quality time together. Because I think originally the plan was that the billionaire was going to go down with his wife, but then his wife at the last minute decided to give up her seat to the 19-year-old son so that they could have a father-daughter father-son moment. Because I think initially some aunt or like a distant relative of the family came out and said that the 19-year-old boy did not want to go underwater and that he was terrified of submarines, which could have been true. But I think that like later on, the actual mother and the sister set the record straight that no, he wanted to go with his dad, and it was supposed to be like this special memory that they made together as a father and a son. So regardless of whether he was scared or not, which I think anyone would be at least a little bit nervous of going that far deep underwater, I think they did not appreciate that this aunt or whoever tried to put the story out there first that the boy was terrified or whatnot. Like that was not the point of the trip. But anyway, so yeah, I just thought it was interesting how even in that case, the woman, the wife of the Pakistani billionaire, decided like somewhere, I believe, deep inside, I think on the surface, she felt like, okay, let me give up, my seat for my son to go spend time with his father. But I think like deep inside, that was her female intuition telling her to pull out, because she probably sensed that there's just something very unnatural about this, and probably the chances of something going wrong are higher than we anticipate. That's what I personally believe. And so I started to look at other like examples of billionaire men versus billionaire/millionaire women, and I realized that almost all the cases that we hear about where people from these very high positions get selected to be humiliated in a ritual every summer, as the meme online so aptly put it, it's almost always the men. And it's almost always because of like their ego or their pride causing them to do some stupid action that they thought they would never have to suffer the consequences of because of their status. However, life taught them otherwise. You know what I mean? So I can think of who else off the top of my head. I mean, all the Me Too people, right? Like Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, that whole slew of powerful men in Hollywood, in media. Jeffrey Epstein, right? Like he mysteriously was unalived after being thrown in jail, which there's speculation on, okay, did he do it himself, or did somebody else, like was somebody in the prison paid off to unalive him because he's too much of a liability if he's alive, he has too many secrets, he knows too much, right? Maybe that's why they took him out. But yeah, in all of these instances where you would think that somebody's social standing and their wealth would shield them from having to face the most dire consequence of all, whether it be death or a complete slaughtering of your public reputation and name, as was the case with this Andy Byron, CEO of Astronomer Company. Those cases in which there have been like dire consequences or dire blowback for the billionaire have always been men, or most of the time, right? In the case of women billionaires, so I'm thinking of Oprah, I'm thinking of Rihanna. She's pretty much a billionaire now, right? I'm not sure exactly how much Fenty Beauty is valuated at, but as a matter of fact, I don't even know that many women billionaires off the top of my head. You know why? Because I bet they keep a lower profile than the men because they don't have as much ego or pride, right? The success for them is enough. The financial success, the comfort that their success brings them, the sometimes necessary social isolation that their success affords them, because if you're rich, then you don't need to like you can pick and choose who you fraternize with, basically. And if there's like lower vibration people or crowds that you don't want to associate with, you don't necessarily have to socialize with them if you are a billionaire or a millionaire, because there's nothing that these people can offer you in terms of connections or, you know, furthering your career. So you don't have to feel as obligated as the everyday woman to go out there and schmooze and network and all of that. Do you catch my drift? So I feel like, or I realize that in the case where the woman is either a self-made millionaire slash billionaire, or she marries into wealth, but either her husband puts her on to a certain status, or the people from her husband's circle, or like the circle that she married in, somebody from that circle puts her on or sets her up for success, right? This is like often what happens, even in extreme cases where it's like a really wealthy guy from a well-to-do family marries a so-called commoner girl. What will happen, I mean, if the guy is a decent person, is that he will set his new wife up to build her own financial independence, right? And if she's a smart woman, that's what she's also going to be aiming for while she's in the union with this guy. Like, no smart woman is ever going to place her entire livelihood and well-being in the hands of a man, as wealthy and generous as he may be, as much as he dotes on her. Any smart woman knows that at the end of the day, you have to have your own business, you have to have your own assets to your name. So, I mean, name me a female CEO or a female billionaire in recent times who has met such a fiery and catastrophic demise as some of these male billionaires right here on the screen. Okay, the Luigi Mangione is not the billionaire. He's the one that unalived the United Healthcare CEO. But name me a woman who has a lot of money, basically, who has ever found herself in a compromising position. It doesn't happen very often. The only one that I can really think of, which is not a recent example, is Princess Diana, because I think her case was different in the sense that she was married off very, very young to Charles. So she was only 19, I think, when she married Charles. Like, truly a Bambi, you know, like a helpless deer thrown into the lion's den. And although she may have had the title, right, like she was given the title of the Princess of Wales or whatever, but I think that she was too young and too naive to really play her cards as savagely as she should have. I think that she, you know, being so young and being from a relatively sheltered background, she did not have the wherewithal yet. And she just didn't have like that savage mindset at that point in her life to get her ducks in a row behind the scenes and to set herself up so that at least she had protection from the royal family in case anything went haywire, which we all know that it did. And I have to say, allegedly, I guess, for legal purposes, but I don't care what anyone says. I think that her demise was planned for sure. And I think it's really one of the most damning pieces of evidence is the fact that the royal family refused to let her body be what's the word? Done an autopsy on. Yeah, that's hella suspicious. And there was also no footage, supposedly, of the crash that happened in the tunnel. Remember? It's all coming back to me now. So I definitely think that car crash was premeditated, and like miraculously they got rid of the footage that definitely existed of the crash actually happening in real time. So I think somebody was hired to do it. Somebody wanted to get rid of her. And because she was too trusting, she was too much of a lover girl in some senses. Even, even after she got the courage to walk away from Charles, she did get a divorce, right? And then she started dating other men publicly. And I think the royal family just really did not like that. I mean, they were hell-bent on not liking her, whatever she did. But see, as long as she stayed married to Charles and she sat down and shut up and knew her place. And as long as she agreed to be a doormat, the royal family would have spared her, right? But she refused to do that. She chose herself instead. But I feel like in her case, she didn't have enough. She didn't have true allies in the royal family, right? So like if she had a true ally, if she played her cards more strategically, she could have secured protection for herself preemptively. You know what I mean? I'm not saying this to um like discredit Princess Diana or to speak down on her or anything. I'm just um laying out, I'm painting the picture of her case here, as opposed to the other women that we know of who are really successful and in high places in modern days who we don't see anything this catastrophic happening to them. We don't really see, certainly they're not getting kidnapped, right? They're not getting, if they're getting abused, they don't have to stand for it because they have the financial means to leave, to walk away, right? And a lot of them we know, especially the self-made ones, they choose not to marry at all for this very reason, because there's really no benefit for you as a woman if you have all the assets, if you're the one that holds most of the wealth in the relationship. Like if you're a woman and you are more successful financially, if you have more assets than your male partner, then there's really no benefit for you to marry. That's why Oprah never married Stedman. That's why Rihanna is not going to be marrying ASAP Rocky anytime soon. Who else? So Kim Kardashian, she did have that little run in Paris. Remember when they remember when those robbers in Paris were tracking her movements through her social media posts, and they hunted her down, I guess, when she was alone in her hotel, and they tied her up and bound and gagged her. So that was negligent, right, on her part, because she should have had better security. And she also could have been more mindful of her social media posts, because she was flaunting her expensive jewelry and things like that. This is not victim blaming, by the way. I'm just saying this is how we as women need to start thinking more strategically, because it really is a matter of life and death. And my point being is that there's a lot fewer cases of like rich women or powerful women meeting their demise or having their reputation completely ruined as there is of men, because women typically have more emotional control. They typically have less ego than men in the first place, right? So they don't think they're as invincible as these men seem to think. They know that there are consequences to certain actions, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of how much social favor you may have at one moment. I think women are typically more cognizant of the fact that all of your blessings could be taken away from you in an instant. We're more like connected. It's kind of a spiritual law too, right? So we're more connected spiritually than men tend to be. And so we tend to move smarter on average. So my point being, by saying all of this, is that if you are a woman and you manage to get all your ducks in a row, if you manage to accumulate wealth, whether it's completely self-made by yourself or whether you do it through a partner, like you date and marry a rich man and then he teaches you or he guides you to make your own business, something like that. Typically, if you do that, you're going to be safe. You're going to be set for life. And even if you make a mishap here and there, you're still, after you get to a certain point, after you pass a certain net worth or whatever, you're pretty much going to be untouchable as a woman, right? Which is what we all want. This is what I want for all women out there, because I believe that we are the most important sacred beings on this planet, and we deserve to be protected at all costs, right? Whenever you think of women, or whenever you hear about women being unalived or abused, sorry, I don't want to use the actual words to trigger the YouTube censors. Whenever you think about women who find themselves in very compromising positions, almost every single time, like 99.99% of the time, it's disenfranchised women. It's women that are of a lower social economic status, right? They don't have many options. They don't have a big support system or a big network. They don't have people who can pull strings in their favor the way that wealthy women or women who navigate higher social circles have access to resources, to people that can pull strings for them. So, yeah, whenever you hear about a girl being unalived or her body found in a ditch somewhere, she disappeared for like 3 weeks and then they found her body like lifeless in an abandoned vehicle. It's always, who are these women that usually turn up in these kinds of stories? S workers, okay, women from impoverished living conditions, women who their name is not known in the zeitgeist, right? Their name, they're not talked about, they're not like deified. So I'm talking about not only in the wealth sense, like in the money sense, but also if you think about, okay, a Hollywood starlet or some sort of celebrity, those women have currency in the form of their fame, right? Although those women also tend to be wealthy as well, but it's not always necessarily the case. But if you are known as something traditionally glamorous, like let's say a model or an actress or a singer, like traditional, you are praised and you are recognized for doing something that women are traditionally praised for doing, right? Whether it be your beauty or your grace or just you have a very like feminine, captivating personality. Those types of women, if they play their cards right, they will pretty much always be protected, right? As long as they can balance their finances, their social circle, and their career, as long as they manage to balance it correctly, and as long as they don't let their ego get the best of them to where they make enemies in the wrong places, things like that, they will typically be protected, if only, if not mostly by the fact that, just the simple fact that so many people know of them and people are fans of them. They adore them. They deify them in some cases. So it's like Britney Spears, for example, right? She was disempowered for a long time in that conservatorship. But the reason that the Free Britney movement caught so much or gained so much traction is because of her highly devoted fans refusing to back down about the question of whether or not she was in a conservatorship. It was a Britney Spears fan that was like sounding the alarm and blowing the whistle about Britney's conservatorship in the very beginning, right? Like Free Britney, that term alone, that was started by her fans, and the fans refused to let up because they adore and they love her so much, right? So yeah, like I hate to say it this way, but in a sense, you could say that it's important you have to have some sort of leverage in this world as a woman, especially if you are beautiful, conventionally seen as attractive or desirable. You need to have preferably all of the above, but at least one of these few choices. You either need to have money or you need to have connections, whether that be through your own business network or through your family network, or you need to have some sort of like iconic status in society, right? People, you don't even necessarily need to be famous for this to happen, but in your community, in the circles that you run in, you need to be adored for something glamorous. And you could say that you could work glamour magic spells on people if you need to, right? So whether or not, like however you go about it, whether you are just like a natural beauty that people automatically wherever you go, you turn heads, or whether you have to go the man-made route where you perfect your hair, your makeup, your clothes, you perfect your way of speaking, way of being, and you create like an aura that is captivating and that kind of generates buzz in your community. That's another way to go about it. But you have to have like one of these three things, preferably all three in different doses, in order to secure your safety in this world. Which I know it sounds kind of bleak and harsh, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in. Because guess what? We do live in the patriarchy. So as a man, men don't really need to worry about their safety in this sense, right? Like you can be a total nobody. You can have zero riz, zero charisma. You could be just like very, very average Joe, below average even, right? Just some salaried employee working in an assembly line. No shame in that, by the way. I'm not shaming anyone here, but what I'm saying is that you can be a very subpar, unremarkable man. You can be not particularly physically attractive, invisible to women, and yet as long as you have a way to sustain your way of living, as long as you have a way to survive through your minimum wage job, you know, which allows you to pay for the bills that cover your basic survival needs, like your rent, light, electricity, food, etc. As long as you have that as a man, you're pretty much good, right? Like we don't really hear about men being unalived, but women on the other hand, okay, especially if you're, the younger, the prettier, the more naive that you are, the more that you're going to be a target for all of the vultures in this very, very male dominated world. So that's why a lot of the female victims that you hear on the news, they're always going to have a few things in common. Either they are S workers, again, like they're in some sort of fringe community, they exist on the fringes of society, or they just simply they don't have any connections. They were brought up in a not so ideal upbringing. They didn't have anyone in their life to teach them how to value themselves as a woman or how to protect themselves from the big bad wolves out there. Typically those are the girls that we hear unfortunately are unalived, or something horrible happened to them to where their entire life was blown apart into smithereens, and now they have to like build themselves back up again brick by brick. You never hear about that happening to socially wealthy women of a high social standing, high to some degree at least, right? You rarely ever hear about that. And when it happens to male billionaires, it's always because they did some stupid man thing, right? They were out cheating, or they thought the rules didn't apply to them because they're the big guy on campus, right? And unfortunately, the sad reality is that a lot of times it does seem like the rules don't apply to them. I mean, case in point, the Diddy trial verdicts, which was so infuriating, but not surprising at all to me. But yeah, every time that we see the downfall of a really wealthy man, Bill Clinton, even, like there's so many examples throughout just the past decade or two. Bill Clinton, our current president in office right now, we don't have to get too much into him, but yeah, Trump, how many incidents does he have under his belt, or even just quotes, right? Like the grab them by the P word, or, you know, racist quotes, misogynist quotes, and yet he's still winning out here because people like his candidness, I guess. Who else? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of another woman CEO. Okay, so Elizabeth Holmes, you guys remember the Theranos CEO? I kept thinking like Thanos. I couldn't remember the name of her sham company, but remember she had a startup, Theranos, and she was basically fabricating like all of the medical developments and progress that they were making in order to, keep her investors on the hook. And then eventually it was exposed that her entire company and all of their operations were a sham. And I think she's in jail now. Is she? I think she was actually sentenced to prison. However, the crazy thing is that, someone like an Elizabeth Holmes, see, she's still not going to suffer too much in the long run. Let me look up, when is Elizabeth Holmes coming out or getting out of jail? Release date for Elizabeth Holmes, August 16th, 2032. Wow, that's a long time. Okay. Oh, she got a reduction. So her previous release date was December 29th, 2032. That's a long time, huh? That's like 7 years. But my point is, okay, when she gets released, though, someone like Elizabeth Holmes, she's not going to get released and then have to go to a women's shelter and struggle for the next, like, however many years to get back on her feet. You know what I mean? I feel like she's still a billionaire, or she still has some net worth. $226 million and falling, apparently, according to Finance Monthly, which is still more money than most people would ever see in their lifetime, right? So people who are at the billionaire, millionaire levels of society, they don't just fall down and hit rock bottom like the rest of us. There's several layers of safety net that they have to fall through before they even get a taste of like normal life. So for me and you, this would be a normal life. Like my studio apartment that costs $800 a month. If you add in utilities, it's just under $1,000 a month for me to live here, and then add my food bills and whatever on top of that. I can get by comfortably if I factor in a budget for entertainment and travel and all of that. I can get by on $30,000 a year easily, right? For these people, they're used to spending like $30,000 doesn't even cover the rent of, their penthouse in New York City for 1 month. So it's just a completely different stratosphere of existence that they inhabit. And you have to realize that even when they go to jail, like for, in this case, Elizabeth Holmes, she did what we would consider, she committed a white collar crime, right? So she didn't do anything that is like considered morally reprehensible in the way that cheating, the astronomer CEO, what he did with his HR lady. I feel like Elizabeth Holmes, yeah, like her reputation, strangely enough, it doesn't suffer to the level of Andy Byron because she didn't cheat and she's a woman. And in a sense, like, I guess when it comes to the justice system, I feel like in a sense, I don't want to say women get off easier, but I want to say that the treatment is definitely different. And I think more case to case when the criminal or, the person being prosecuted is a woman, because we as a society, we're still not used to the idea of a woman doing something bad enough to the point where she needs to be punished in prison, right? Women are villainized all the time. Don't get me wrong. Women are villainized left, right, and center and blamed for things that are not our fault. We get men's own, feelings of inadequacy and frustration with themselves. They constantly project it onto women and make us the villains and the witches and whatnot. That happens. However, when you're talking about the legal system, I feel like it's a different story. And I feel like in the case of Elizabeth Holmes, yes, it might be embarrassing for her now. I'm sure prison life is not comfortable, and 7 years is a long time to wait to get out. But the fact of the matter is that eventually she will get out and she will return to a somewhat cushy life of luxury. Like her net worth is not going to plummet from 230 million or however much it was to like zero or to poverty line within a matter of 7 years. That's just not going to happen, you know? So as long as she herself doesn't like let the hit on her reputation, so to speak, affect her, sorry, excuse me, her quality of life is not going to go down that much. Do you know what I mean? Which, like, in a sense, it's almost, I don't know, it's almost ironically, it works out for people like this. This is why, like, I always am an advocate of being a little bit of a narcissist, actually, because I feel like in order to, if you're at the higher levels, playing at the higher levels requires higher stakes, right? Which means that I think it actually works in your favor if you have a little bit of a narcissistic personality, if I'm being honest. If you're like, or at the very least, if you're able to just tune out, the criticism of the public, if you have to have a level of like egotism, especially as a woman, because we are socialized differently from men. We have been socialized since birth to suppress that part of ourselves. We've been told that it's bad to be egotistical. It's bad to believe in yourself and speak up for yourself. And you should always shrink yourself to make other people feel comfortable. That's what we've been indoctrinated with growing up. So I almost feel like, I don't know, like it doesn't upset me as much when I see women getting arrested for white collar crimes per se. It's more just like entertainment for me. Because I just want to see how the rest of the story plays out. Anna Delvey is another good one, because she was that girl who pretended to be a Russian heiress or something, and she was so good at her cosplaying that she actually got lots of people from New York high society to buy into her identity, which in turn prompted them to put up actual money or like invest in her whatever farce of an idea that she had. She got like real people with influence to invest in her business ideas, right? And then of course, her cover eventually got blown, and I think she's also serving time in prison right now, if I'm not mistaken. But they did, like, I feel like her social image did not take a hit, though. If anything, her social reputation skyrocketed, because she's kind of like a cult favorite now. I mean, people are rooting for someone like an Anna Delvey because she basically proved that you can beat the system with the fake it till you make it attitude. And if you watch her interviews, to which these interviewers are, trying to ask her about, okay, so how do you feel about this? Or do you think that you're like famous? And they're trying to subtly shame her, but she's not going for it at all. The way that she answers is just, she's still so self-confident. She's so convinced of her own validity that it's almost like, you can't shame the shameless, right? That's one of my favorite sayings. So be shameless. I'm not saying to necessarily go out there and commit crimes. Like, don't do what Elizabeth Holmes or Anna Delvey did. But I'm just saying, we as women, we could all benefit from adopting a little bit of that braggadocious attitude, that narcissistic, if you will, or adopting some of that hubris. I've always been a proponent of that, and people really, really don't like to hear it coming from me, because I'm supposed to be this cute, demure little Asian girl. But little do you know, I'm a Leo snake, okay? I'm true to this, not new to this. And actually, the more that people get upset with me, the more it feeds my ego. I'm just going to be straight up with you. So yeah, We can talk about Naomi Campbell too, right? So personally, I'm, don't get upset, please. If you're a fan of her, that's fine. But personally, I don't think Naomi Campbell is a good person. I think she was complicit with a lot of Jeffrey Epstein's dealings back in the day. I think it's just very sus. She was always like, back in the day before Me Too, she had no problem rubbing shoulders with, canoodling, being all cozying up with these powerful men who were rumored to be doing all these heinous things to less advantaged women behind the scenes. And in fact, it wasn't even a rumor. It was more of just like an open secret in the industry at the time, the entertainment and the music industry. And I feel like Naomi Campbell knew full well what these men were up to, but because they were always in her corner, because she was never like the victim, and she may very well have been a victim herself in her early years, we'll never know. But I feel like the time period that I'm talking about, the 90s, the 2000s, Naomi Campbell was already a household name by that point. She was known as one of the supermodels of the world, right? So I feel like because of her status, again, because of her high status as one of the most desirable, sought after supermodels in the world. So this means she's rich, she's famous, she's adored. People are just like captivated by, they would do anything for her beauty. Because of that, she was insulated from the nefarious deeds of these male associates that were in her circle. Jeffrey Epstein, Diddy, I don't know who else, probably a bunch of other men. That guy that gave her the blood diamonds, I forget his name, but he was like a literal war criminal, right? All these men she had no problem being photographed with, rubbing shoulders with, because she wasn't the one being victimized in that instance. So it was very easy for her to turn a blind eye. I mean, there are Jeffrey Epstein victims that have come out accusing Naomi Campbell of standing by idly at a party, knowing that that victim was underage at the time and yet not doing anything or not saying anything to help the girl, like basically almost enabling someone like Jeffrey Epstein to go violate her later. And we're not saying that, okay, women are not responsible for the heinous actions of men. They're not responsible for, like, Naomi was not responsible for jumping in and being a superhero and preventing Epstein from victimizing young girls, right? That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that her track record, though, is a little bit too consistent for me. Like, the way that she consistently rubbed shoulders with these men, she consistently has been photographed, and there's video footage of her singing the praises of people like Diddy. There's video footage of, Oprah, for example, has been known to be BFFs with Harvey Weinstein. So yeah, Oprah's another one. I'm not a fan of billionaires. Just so you know, I'm not a fan of anyone that I don't know personally, that I have not vetted and decided for myself that, okay, this is a person that checks out as far as my moral codes go. But anyway, I feel like Naomi Campbell has always been very shady. And aside from the whole Epstein Diddy connection, just her own antics by herself, I've never been a fan of. The fact that she has gotten violent with her staff in the past, the fact that even just like the way that she acted on those modeling shows that she was a judge on, I think it was like The Face or something. It was a UK show, right? So not America's Next Top Model, but like The Face. Is that what it's called? I just remember there was one time where there was this other model, Coca Rocha. I forgot. Oh my god, I forgot her name. I only remember that Heidi Klum hosted the show. I think it was The Face UK, and then like Naomi Campbell told this other model, Coca, that she should fix her lipstick before she comes and talks to her. And she was just like very nasty and mean girl, and she proved everything that Tyra Banks was saying about her in that show. Oh yeah, and then she also said that she doesn't care if she's late to a photo shoot. She'll never apologize. Like, she'll just she doesn't see the point of apologizing because the time is already gone. So if she's late, she's late, and they just have to deal with it and get on with it, right? She's like, well, I'm here now, so let's just get the shoot started. And I just thought that was so arrogant and entitled, and like I would not want to work with a person like that. I don't care how iconic you are. But anyway, enough of the Naomi bashing. I just think it's a shame because she really is so beautiful. She's so like statuesque, she reminds me of like a Nubian goddess. I remember watching her in the Michael Jackson in the Closet video, and to me that was her best look aesthetically. I loved that video. She looked amazing. Like her and Michael together, I loved how they looked on screen together. But the fact that she's just so shady, and then recently she was also outed for using the funds of this charity that she was on the board of in order to pay for her own like luxury hotel fees or her luxury spa fees, something like that. That was kind of the nail in the coffin for me, to where I was just like, okay, I really cannot F with you at all anymore, Naomi, as sad as that is for me to say. But I bring this all up to say that look at someone like Naomi Campbell, right? She doesn't have the cleanest track record by far, and she's definitely, it's not only me that has caught wind of all these allegations of like bad behavior and unprofessionalism on her part. And yet one thing you can't deny about her though is that she's a very, very smart woman. She's very shrewd and very controlling about the way that her image is presented out to the public. If you watch her in certain interviews where they try to ask her questions about things that she doesn't want to talk about, she is very, very quick to shut that down. She will get up and just walk out of the interview if she has to. She's very, very strict and doesn't play with her boundaries, right? So even like my point is that you don't necessarily need to be, you don't have to be a good person like on the inside necessarily in order to pull this off successfully as a woman. As long as you have money, as long as you manage your public persona properly, as long as you make people, like if you can make people support you and be your fan, you don't even necessarily have to be a good person at heart. You just have to be good at playing the PR game, right? That's the sad reality. So I use Naomi Campbell as one such example of somebody that I don't feel like she is of that high standing in terms of moral character. However, in all the other areas, in all the earthly realms, we'll say, fame, wealth, beauty, being the standard of beauty, right? For many, many decades, even now in her 50s, she is still has such a striking aesthetic. Her desirability across cultures, even, she leverages all of that masterfully. She has been leveraging it masterfully for the past several decades of her career. And I think it's quite impressive, regardless of my own opinions on her as a person. That's the level of playing chess that I'm saying women need to do these days in order to protect themselves, in order to make sure that they are safe and secure in this life. And whether you think that's sad or you think it's unnecessary, it's the reality of the world that we live in these days. So please don't take it lightly, Don't take your life lightly. I mean, life is meant to be enjoyed. Definitely take your time to go frolic in the fields, stop and smell the flowers, all that type of thing. I'm a big proponent of. Burn a cute little candle once in a while, a cute puppy candle, just because you feel like it. Do all of those things, all of those light feminine energy things, so to speak. But at the same time, don't sorry, is this loud? My air conditioner is so loud, but it's 35 degrees outside. I really cannot last for more than 5 minutes without it. But yeah, enjoy your life. You can do all the just a girl things to your heart's content. However, you need to make sure that your livelihood and your safety and your security is at the forefront of your mind always. Or else you're going to find out in a not so pleasant way in the future, which I don't wish on anybody. But the reality, the truth of the matter is, if you're an intelligent, beautiful woman walking around in this world, that's always going to make you a target. It's always going to make you prey. Because we live in a male-dominated society. We live in a patriarchy, not a matriarchy. So you having all of these qualities, yes, it's wonderful. And you, on the surface, you may think that this is great. It's drawing so many people to me. It's drawing so much, popularity and success to me. But those good people with good intentions, the ones that approach you for friendship, the ones that approach you to try to help you step up in your career and step up in your life, that's only a portion of the people that are going to approach you in this world. You know what I mean? The other half is going to be the predators. It's going to be the users, the ones that want to take something from you, or the ones that are maybe envious, or they see that you have something that they feel like they can't get for themselves. So they want to use you as a way to get what they feel like they deserve in this life. Okay, I feel like I'm getting very intense right now. And I didn't mean for this video or this topic to be that intense, but yeah, basically you get what the gist of what I'm saying is, right? This is why it's so important as a woman to accumulate wealth by whatever means possible, at whatever level you are able to, right? I'm not saying that everyone here needs to aim to become a millionaire or a billionaire in their lives, but whatever station of life you happen to be at, you need to always be strategizing at how you can get to the next level, because it's not just, it goes way deeper than soft life, aesthetics, the next Birkin bag. Look at me with the next Chanel or Birkin bag. All of those things are fine, and you should definitely enjoy them if that's what you want. But it's so much deeper than that when we're talking about leveling up and building up your net worth, climbing into higher social circles in society. The deeper significance of that is bolstering your own safety and your own protection mechanisms in your life, okay? Especially if you are somebody that maybe doesn't come from a family that is already well connected, or you just don't have a strong built-in network that you were born into, right? So me, for example, I had a very nice little family growing up. My parents were both very loving, very doting. I'm an only child, but because of the circumstances of our family, the fact that my parents immigrated to the US when they were grad students so that they could have me in the US so that I could become a US citizen, they were fractured from the rest of our family at the point that they decided to make that move, right? Because the rest of my relatives still live in China. And if you remember back in the day, the 90s and such, we didn't have all this social media. We didn't even have cell phones. I don't think when I was born, I don't think we had the first cell phone until the mid 90s. So we didn't even have a way to have daily communication with people back home. In those days, it really felt like you were leaving your old life, your old world, for a new world when you talk about a move as drastic as from China to the US, right? I'm talking about more from, my parents' point of view, because by the time I grew up, okay, we had cell phones, we had social media and everything, but I still remember I did experience a very small fraction of that time when I was very, very young, 10 years and below. I remember writing letters to my cousin back in China, my uncle's daughter, and it would take 2 weeks or more for the letter to be delivered from US to China. So by the time that, when she finally received my letter, first of all, I didn't know if it was guaranteed to even reach her house or not, because it had to go through so many like different borders and postal codes just to reach her. And my grandparents don't even live in like a big city or anything like that. It's kind of a very small provincial type of town. So yeah, if it even reached her, it would not be until 2 weeks after I sent the letter. And then I remember we would have like designated days, once a month or twice a month, where we would call long distance on the landline to talk to, like, I guess for me, for my parents, they would talk to their parents or my grandparents, and then they would also let me on the line to say hi to grandma and grandpa. And then also if my cousin happened to be home from school or something, they would let her on the line to talk to me as well. And then I would ask her, hey, did you get my letter? And she'd be like, yeah, I got it. I love it so much. Thank you for sending me, the stationery or the stickers, whatever I included with her letter. I also just wrote you back, so you should expect a letter from me in the next 2 weeks. And that was like, that was how it was back in the 90s. So I lost where I was going with this. Oh, yeah. So even like in my case, right, that I had a very nice like family life growing up, and I have, a relatively good relationship with my dad and my mom. They divorced later on when I was in college, but still, individually speaking, I have a good relationship with them. However, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that my mom necessarily has the strongest network in terms of like, okay, so my dad passed away 2 years ago, right? So now it's basically just my mom, who is my immediate family. I don't have any siblings, and my mom is like just a regular, employee of this company. She's been an engineer at this company for the past, I don't even know how many years, but she is at a pretty senior position now, and she's happy with that life, right? She's very happy. She likes the stability that a 9 to 5 job offers her, and she's always been very, responsible with her money and everything like that. And she doesn't have to worry about anyone except me, her one and only child or daughter. So from her perspective, I think she is fine. But for me, if I want to level up, or if I want to expand my social circle and my opportunities in life, I can't really rely on like my mom and her network, for example, because that's the farthest that she and her associates have ever been able to get, is basically to just climb up the corporate ladder and have this nice cushy desk job for the rest of their days until retirement. Those are the types of people that my mom knows. That's not exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm not knocking it if that's what your goal is, right? Totally fine. There's a lot of people who feel comfortable with that lifestyle. For me, that's not my ideal, right? I'll deal with it. I do have a 9 to 5 job, obviously, to pay my bills. I will deal with it for as long as I have to. But ideally, that's not how I want to live my life. I want to be my own boss in the future, or have financial freedom, or at least have like several streams of income. That's what I feel more comfortable with. So if I want to achieve a higher status than I'm able to achieve just by the circumstances or the network that I'm born into, then I have to do extra work on myself. I have to do work by myself to achieve that, right? I need to seek out new connections, new opportunities. I need to do the work on myself to refine my speaking skills, or whatever skills I need in order to ingratiate myself into those circles. And I think that also includes beauty and aesthetics, right? I need to polish myself in a certain way so that I can be, for lack of a better word, palatable to those circles, so that I can get what I want out of the situation in the end. You see what I mean? And so that I can also be protected in case anything goes wrong. What if we have another pandemic? Well, if we have another pandemic, and let's say, God forbid, there's a bunch of layoffs again and I find myself out of a job, I'm not going to be as worse off as if I didn't do the footwork. If I didn't do the preliminary footwork to build up my network, I would be in a much worse position if another natural catastrophe like the pandemic happened, right? Because then I would find myself with laid off, without a job, and then also without a network, right? Without any means really to get myself on steady footing again. Whereas if you look at my situation now, I have put in the work to build a network. I do have certain contacts that I can reach out to in case of an emergency, right? Like I have so-called break glass in case of emergency contacts. In case I find myself laid off or out of a job, I know who to call, to where, of course, it's not guaranteed that they're going to give me a job on the spot, but I know influential people who have connections to other people who have the power to give me a job, right? A way to feed myself or sustain myself. I have savings now. Not as much as I'd like. So I'm trying to build up like a $20,000 just safety, what's it called? Safety savings net, just in my immediate checkings account, separate from like obviously retirement or 401k, just a separate like emergency savings account. I want that number to be at least $20,000. I have like $5,000 right now, which is not nearly enough for me. And even $20,000 is like not enough. So if I were to, let's say, lose my job tomorrow and be unable to work, I would not feel comfortable with only $20,000 immediate savings as a safety net. I would want at least $30,000, but you know, we're going to do it in increments. We're going to take baby steps. So $5,000, the next step, I would want to have $20,000 just sitting there in the bank, like untouched, as a break glass in case of emergency safety savings account. YouTube is another way too, like social media. Although my main purpose of doing social media, I kind of let go of the idea of trying to do social media full time, not because I don't want to anymore, but just because, I don't know, this would be an entirely new video, so I don't want to get too into it, but I'm not really thrilled with the direction that social media is taking in recent years. I understand why it's happening, of course, like every time a new platform or a new trend matures, it's always going to turn into, I guess, like a clamor for people trying to stake their own space or their own land, essentially, in the social media frontier. But I feel like as social media continues to grow and we continue to get more and more people finding out that you can make money online, there's more and more disingenuous interviewers. I don't want to say, not interviewers, influencers. I don't want to say fake, but there's more and more influencers where I'll just say I personally don't resonate with the style of influencer that is like prone to get popular these days. So I don't know. There's something about like a lot of the newer TikTokers and even YouTubers, like the vlogs type YouTubers, the ones that do chats in their cars. There's something that turns me off so much from all of the new wave of influencers that are doing that type of content, because it feels like manufactured authenticity to me. It doesn't feel real, especially if I can sense, if I clock that they're basically going live or they're uploading on a rigid schedule and they are hitting like every single topic that is trending. They make sure to make a new video, or they make 5 videos on every single trending topic, every single trending phrase. Then I clock it that, oh, this person is not even in it for the sake of what I feel is the true purpose of social media, which is to foster connection and enable us, especially as women, to build an online community of like-minded women, right? Or of people that are interested in the same issues and the same hobbies as we are. That's what I like to go to social media for. But when I see these like fake, these manufactured, authentic types of YouTubers and TikToks popping up to where they're basically like the filming style is DIY, so to speak, right? Like they're filming on their phone. They don't always have their makeup on. So it feels like they're being authentic, but I can clock that they're not actually being authentic because all they do is that they ride the wave of whatever trending topic is out there in the zeitgeist right now. And I can tell exactly what they're doing. Like they're basically just milking every new topic that comes along for as many videos and as many views as they can get, which they are well within their rights to do. I mean, more power to you. If that's what generates clicks for them, if that's what brings in revenue, more power to them. But me personally, I'm just not interested in it, right? Because I don't rely on YouTube as my full-time income, so I don't feel the need to do that. Like I don't need to scavenge for scraps every time there is a trending headline or a meme. I don't feel the need to jump on it within 0.2 seconds just to cash in as much as I can, because like why? I want to talk about what I'm interested in, I feel like that's the true flex these days. That's the true authenticity. Like if I'm interested in candles, but the rest of the internet finds it to be the most boring topic ever, well then I guess I'll just be over here live streaming about my newest candle haul with the 2.5 people on the internet that happen to be interested in candles at this point in time. Like I'm fine with that. I wanted to find those 2.5 people in the first place. I didn't want to find like thousands of people. I didn't want to go, like for example, the Coldplay CEO scandal thing when it first broke. I could have gone live and then garnered like thousands and thousands of views and hundreds of new subscribers just by jumping on that topic while it was hot, but that would still not have been authentic connection at the end of the day, right? It would have just been a bunch of people that are like reading the news at the same time and we all happen to latch onto this story. It wouldn't have been built on a mutual genuine interest in anything. It's just like an interest in gossip essentially, or an interest in being a sheeple. And that's not even the type of audience that I'm trying to attract. So I almost feel like these days, I almost feel like it's better. It's more punk rock, to have lesser views and less subscribers or less people tuning in. I feel like it's almost like it's a sign that you're very niche and you're very punk rock and it's only for an exclusive audience. Like my candle haul is not going to be for everyone, okay? It's only going to be for the very, very select few people who are on my wavelength right now, being obsessed with these candles from Shein. Oh my God, you guys, I feel like the candle obsession, as quickly as it came on in my life though, it might be dying just a little bit. I mean, I'm still going to be buying lots of candles, and I don't think that this awareness of candles is going to leave my life anytime soon. I think it's just going to be like a new habit that's incorporated into my daily routine. So now whenever I go shopping, I'm going to unconsciously check out the candle section as well. That's something that I never did before when I went shopping. So from now on, I think it's going to be just a normal part of my shopping experience. I'm always going to check out the candle section. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to like start making candles and start a whole handmade candle business like I originally delusionally thought when I bought my first candle about a month ago. But anyway, what else did I want to say? I think I covered mostly everything. Yeah. Think about this long and hard, ladies, before you just want to I know the urge to throw your hands up and be like, okay, I don't want to play this game anymore. I don't want to play the dating game. I don't want to try to fight and claw my way up for a promotion at a job. I'm sick and tired of being told that I have to have 3+ streams of income just to survive barely in this world, in this capitalist system. But I'm here to tell you that if you don't decide to play the game, no one's going to come save you, okay? No one is coming to bail you out. Because the fact of the matter is, the reality is that we were all born unwillingly into the system, and we are all born by default as a player of this game, whether you like it or not. So you might as well, you're not going to be able to change single-handedly capitalism or the patriarchy, which has been entrenched and in power for the past however many decades and centuries. Likely, I'm not going to say anything is impossible, but likely you, as a single person from a nondescript family that doesn't have that much influence in this world, likely you are not going to be able to change that. Because you know why? The people that actually are born into privilege in this world, the people that actually come from powerful families, they want to upkeep the systems of inequality. Because those are the very systems that keep them elevated at the top of the system. I just said system like 10 times in a row. But do you see what I mean? Why would you want to break the system down if you happen to be born into that pocket of elite society in the first place? Even if you could be like a very sympathetic person, you could have a very empathetic heart and look around and think, wow, I feel so bad for all of those women and girls in third world countries that don't even have the opportunity to learn how to read. Oh my God, I feel so bad for them. Let me go ahead and build a school for them so that I feel better. There are wealthy people, like so-called wealthy, members of elite society who try to do their part. They try to do what they can through philanthropy. But at the end of the day, it's all just an act, right? Because if they show publicly that they did something philanthropic, that means that they don't actually have to go turn against their own kind. Because if they trust and believe that if they actually took any action to deliberately try to take down the system that has been supporting them and their family for this whole time, or for generations upon generations, they would get thrown out. Them and their entire lineage and everyone they're connected to would get thrown out in a heartbeat by that whole community. So nobody's trying to lose their place in the totem pole. You know what I mean? The higher up you get, the more protective people are going to be over their positions in this world. So, and if you were honest with yourself, you would be exactly the same way if you were fortunate enough to be born amongst the wealthy and the powerful in this world. You would be exactly the same way. The only reason that you're upset about it is because you are not in that position, right? You feel like you've been dealt not that great a hand of cards, or you've been given the shit end of the stick or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have no choice but to play the game and to maximize whatever you have been given. So if that happens to be wit, charm, if it happens to be beauty or intelligence or a combination of all of those things, I implore you to strategically use all of those gifts to the best of your ability. To put yourself in a position where it's near impossible, or at least it's not easy for predatory people to get to you, or for predatory systems to take advantage of you and swallow you up as just another bite in their meal, just another jolt of energy for their system. You know, your life is precious and valuable, but only you can be the best advocate for that. Nobody else is going to advocate on your behalf. because they have their own shit to worry about. So, yeah. I think that's all I want to say about this topic. I have so many topics that I want to talk about. But I'll save that for another day. Lauren Sanchez is another one, right? She just recently married to one of the wealthiest men in the world, one of the only billionaires, Jeff Bezos. But the thing about Lauren Sanchez is she's going to be fine because we know that she's a smart woman. Regardless of how you feel about Lauren Sanchez, you can't deny that she is self-made in her own right. With or without Bezos, she was always going to be fine because she has her own social circle. She has her own thing going on. She has hobbies, friends, associates, a whole network outside of Bezos. So her getting married to Jeff is only going to elevate her status and increase her protection. Yeah. You're never going to hear about Lauren Sanchez like being found unconscious, stabbed to death in some predator's basement. Stuff like that doesn't happen to rich women. All right, this is my whole point with this live stream. Because in order to get to where they were financially and socially speaking, you have to be very, very smart and shrewd as a woman. You have to be playing chess this whole time. And women who play chess, and typically don't throw it all away on some sort of like emotional whim or outburst, the way that a lot of these men out here be doing. Case in point, Andy Byron of Astronomer. I was so confused when I first read that headline. Does anybody else feel the same? Like, all I remember was that, okay, so it was a Coldplay concert, and then they had a kiss cam, and then something about, I think the first headline I read was mistaken because it said Coldplay's CEO gets caught cheating on the kiss cam, something like that. And I was like, wait a minute, Coldplay has a CEO? What do you mean? Like, wait, Chris Martin? Are they talking about Chris Martin? Because he's the lead singer, but like maybe they thought maybe he's the CEO of the Coldplay brand. I don't know. But then I'm looking at the guy in the picture, Andy, right? And I'm like, I've never seen these people before in my life. Who are these people? Are these people the president of Coldplay, the company? Like, does Coldplay also have a company or an LLC that we don't know about, a holdings company? But then later on, it's like, oh, okay, the CEO of Astronomer, which is not related to Coldplay, but they just happened to be at a Coldplay concert. And then I heard that he tried to like fire the guy that got the tickets for him and the HR lady. Or he did fire him. I think that guy made a social media post like clapping back essentially at the CEO that, hey, dude, I'm not to blame for your own choice to not be faithful to your wife. But anyway. Let me know if you can think of other examples. Sorry, I couldn't really think of anyone except like Oprah, Rihanna, Lauren Sanchez now. Even Jeff Bezos's first wife, right? Like Mackenzie. Everyone likes to deify her and villainize Lauren Sanchez based on the optics. But Mackenzie, trust and believe, she's going to be fine too, okay? She has been fine. I mean, I don't know what her settlement was in the divorce, but I'm sure it was a hefty chunk. And I'm sure she's going to continue to live her best life on her yachts this summer. So, see? If you're a woman, as long as you play your cards right, your safety and your good quality of life is pretty much guaranteed if you can achieve a certain level of financial abundance or financial freedom, I'll say. Because abundance looks different to every person, right? Like some women are really okay with just a more bare bones type of lifestyle as long as all their necessities are covered. They don't need all the Hermes bags or things like that. But as long as they have a very high quality of life and they don't have to scramble in the case of an emergency. Like they have enough emergency funds to cover any type of life-altering scenario that might come up. For some women, that's more than enough in order to live a fulfilling life, right? So, yeah. I mean, I could be wrong, but please let me know the last time that you heard of a truly like powerful, in the public eye, rich boss billionaire type of woman, whether she's a wife of someone rich or she's a self-made billionaire. When was the last time that you heard of such a woman being victimized or having her entire life ruined, her reputation smeared? I can't really think of many instances in recent news. I know a lot of men that ruined their own success, but that's on them, you know? Bill Clinton, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, P. Diddy, who got off too easy, in my opinion. Andy Byron. Who knows? Maybe Bezos is next. Because now people are asking, who's the next one? Who's the next sacrifice for 2026? I'm thinking it might be Bezos, only because I feel like it's primed to be him if the disdainful response from the public towards his recent marriage to Lauren Sanchez is any indication. I feel like that's the perfect primed person to be the next target, the next billionaire that they're going to sacrifice. But then again, I don't know. I feel like I don't think Bezos would go down so easily without a fight. As much as we like to think of him as maybe one of the more, I don't want to say simpy, but nondescript billionaires. Like he's not the, I don't know, Christian Grey type of like dominant zaddy type billionaires. Maybe to some of you he is, but he's more of just that middle-aged bald guy. I mean, he looks really fit and buff now. I think after he started dating Lauren, he started to take his fitness more seriously. So he looks buff and like fit. I think he looks good for, you know, whatever he had to work with originally, but I don't think he's as chummy on the inside as his outward appearance may suggest, if you catch my drift. Like, I think he might actually be a little more savage than he lets on with his appearance. So I don't think Bezos would be as easy of a target. And I also don't think that Bezos is actually even that ruled by his ego in comparison with some of these other dudes out here. Again, ironically, because of his wedding to Lauren Sanchez, like I'm sure that he is aware of the criticism that his new wife gets all the time in the tabloids. I'm sure that, you know, by proxy of people, for example, attacking her looks and her botched lip filler, which I don't agree with at all, but these are the types of vitriol that people like to throw at Lauren Sanchez, right? So by proxy, he kind of is affected by that as well, because that's the woman that he chose. But it seems like he doesn't give a fuck, though, what you guys think about his woman, because as evidenced by their lavish wedding that he threw for her in Venice, he absolutely adores and is crazy about that woman. So I think that speaks to like the true strength of his character. I'm not saying that this makes him a good or a bad guy or anything, but I'm just saying I don't think Bezos would be as easy of a target as you might assume based on just the way he looks alone. Like, I think he's actually much more of a grounded, impenetrable person. I hope so. Anyway, I hope it's not Jeff Bezos, because I do like Lauren Sanchez, so I wouldn't want... They're not on my shit list, we'll say. That couple in particular, they're not exactly on my shit list, but yeah. Okay, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.